Hello and welcome to Achieving the Dreams Technology Solutions webinar. My name is Caitlin Donnelly. I am the Strategic Partnerships and Development Officer. And so our agenda for today is I'll share a little bit about the Technology Solutions webinar series. I'll introduce you to our presenter, and we will have the presentation Increasing Student Engagement and Improving Learning Outcomes in Developmental English with Aplia. And there will be time for question and answer and some discussion, and this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all of you at the end of today's broadcast. So the Technology Solutions webinar series was launched just last year, and it was a result of achieving the dream, understanding that increasingly often the solutions that our network colleges are adopting to improve student persistence, completion, and the attainment of market-valued credentials involve the use of technology. The new webinar series for our colleges is intended to provide information about technology solutions that their peers have found particularly successful in improving student success outcomes. It gives us all an opportunity to stay abreast of the rapidly changing education technology environment by hearing stories from our colleges about what is working for them and the impact technology has had on their ability to collect and use data to bring about institutional change. I'd like to introduce Dawn White. She's the Implementation and Training Specialist with Cengage Learning. Prior to joining Cengage Learning, Dawn was an English faculty member at Achieving the Dream Leader College, Davidson County Community College. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dawn to present.
Thank you, Caitlin. And let me get there. Okay, hello and welcome from beautiful and sunny North Carolina. And I want to start today with telling you a little bit about the area in which Davidson County Community College is located, and we'll give you a little bit of the demographics of the students, because that's a little bit important to the outcomes that we received and the way the program was developed. And then I'll move into the actual structure, the history of how the program was structured, and how we developed the courses and what they look like at the end of the program. So Davidson County is in a very rural area of central North Carolina, and the largest city centers are actually in different counties, and they would be Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point. And I know a lot about Davidson County because that's actually where I went to high school, and my extended family still lives there. So I feel like I know the area pretty well. And when I was younger, much younger, the main industries were tobacco and furniture and textiles. But in the early to mid 80s, those things pretty much began disappearing, and people lost jobs. There's factories, furniture factories, and things that are miles long that just stand empty today as things begin to move overseas. And so one of the big roles that Davidson County Community College plays, along with a lot of community colleges, is that of retraining. So we're working with an older population, the non-traditional population, and we're helping them build skills in the areas of medicine or aviation. Some hardware and software for technology has moved into the area, though not directly into Davidson County. And so helping these students be prepared to re-enter the workforce is probably one of the biggest things that this community college in particular does. There's not so many students that are college transfers, four-year college transfers. Davidson County Community College was founded in 1963. and it's very well known for a good quality education. It's part of the North Carolina Community College system. We have a centralized community college system in North Carolina made up of 58 community college, and Davidson County offers about 50 degree programs. It serves a growing regional population. It serves 2 counties. It's actually the College of Davidson and Davie counties, but it's an aging population, and most students are enrolled in, those over the age of 50 are enrolled in continuing ed. There are some curriculum students and college and career readiness students, but a lot of them are enrolled in continuing ed. And that really influenced the decisions that we made as a group in developmental education. I want to break down the demographics a little bit farther for you. The number of full-time students to part-time, there's obviously more part-time students. About 63% are part-time. And of the full-time students, about 60% are Pell Grant recipients. And this was data from that 2011-2012 school year. It is predominantly female. That was always very obvious in the courses, in the classes. But this is the slide I really wanted to get to. On the right-hand side of the screen with the blue and the orange and the green, these are students under the age of 24, so more traditional college-age students, green being 20 to 24 years of age. There's also included in that a large and successful middle college on that campus. So this includes some high school age students. The rest of the pie chart, over 50% of it, represents those students who are 25 and older. And so this is 50% of our population is above the age of 25. So we use that term non-traditional. The population is majority white, and most students have a high school degree. So again, we're working with students who are needing to be retrained and prepared for a new career. Davidson County Community College became an Achieving the Dream College in 2010, and things really at that point began to become much more student-focused. What was best for the students, how to get them ahead. And that's one thing that Achieving the Dream brought to the campus. Then in 2012, it became a leader college. And also in 2012, the Davidson County Community College entered into a cadre of 5 community colleges in North Carolina that became part of the Completion by Design network. And Completion by Design worked to redesign the areas of developmental education, different programs of study. It also included things like intensive advising and some student management technology. And all of these efforts really changed the landscape of developmental education on that campus. And it opened up some doors for us to really begin to think about and streamline what we were doing with those students who were placed in developmental education. Before the intervention, in 2010-ish, the students took a placement test, and they were placed into various levels of courses. English, there's 4 levels of English and 4 levels of reading, and depending upon their placement test scores as to where they were placed. And they might place, for example, into English 070 and reading 080. And even if they placed there, which meant they could write a paragraph and they could read, at a lower high school level, which is a lot of students at the community college level. They had 5 semester-long courses to complete before they could get into their curriculum level English. And so this could be 2 to 3 years that they would sit in developmental English. We call it the black hole of developmental education. So we knew we had to do something about it. And with these national efforts of Achieving the Dream and Completion by Design, it gave us a chance to sit back and really examine what we were doing and the nice thing was that we had a lot of flexibility and the blessing of our deans and the other leadership on our campus to really rethink how we were doing things. We knew we needed to accelerate the courses. Students couldn't sit 2 to 3 years in these developmental courses any longer. They needed to get some traction and get into those curriculum level courses. So the first thing we did was to combine reading and English. We also streamlined the curriculum. We looked at what students really, really needed to know to be college and career ready. And we realized that we needed, in order to do that, we really needed to look at what they had to have to read and write for a profession. And so that took out a lot of those things like analyzing a poem and intensive grammar lessons. We really wanted to look at the students and improve their grammar through their writing, getting them writing more and more, and writing for different purposes. So we took that time to look at what we were doing at each level and really focus on those skills at that level, make sure that they were mastered before they moved on. So what we did is we got rid of the 8 courses and we boiled them down to these 3 levels of reading and writing. And the nice thing is that they were already available in the Common Course catalog, so there wasn't a lot of red tape to get them started. We began by rethinking how we were going to move students to that level of college and career readiness through this course sequence. Students would still take that placement exam, the same placement exam, but we worked on a crosswalk of sorts to help us place them in the English 075 and 085 and 095 levels. Then we started to look at looking at how well they were reading and writing when they entered the course versus upon completion of the course. Students were given a second assessment during the first week of class where they took a Lexile reading test and a writing exam, and I'll go into more details on that in a minute. And then we also looked at that at the end of the course and compared those 2 scores. At this point, these courses, the English 075, English 085, and English 095, were still 16-week courses. So we had lots of time, not lots of time, but enough time at the beginning and the end of the course to take the time to hand score things and read essays and things like that. And these were pretty effective at the time. They helped us to really get a measure of where students were reading and writing and how effective they were at that. So the assessments was some sort of Lexile reading test that gave us a reading level, and that was usually something that we purchased. And then the writing test was a standard prompt that every course used. It didn't matter which level. And then we scored the students on a standard 6-point rubric by reading the essay, and each essay had to have 2 readers. We combined the score, and then they had exit scores that we expected them to achieve by the end of the semester. We also had portfolios of writing and reading samples that we included, and I'd even started to use an electronic portfolio with developmental students. So we were really beginning to make them familiar with technology and things like that. What happened next was that after we'd been doing our multiple measures and thinking through how to best serve our students and move them through, and really came up with some different ways that were working really, really well with our students. The state started something called the Developmental Education Initiative, which was a developmental redesign at the state level. And as I said earlier, in North Carolina, we have the North Carolina Community College System centralized office, which consists of 58 community colleges. And so Success North Carolina was the developmental redesign part of that. So this was a statewide initiative, and the purpose was to set standard student learning outcomes for both math, developmental math, and developmental reading in English. And their main goals was to accelerate student completion, which we were already doing at Davidson, to implement some diagnostic assessments, which we were already using, and to increase the number of students who successfully completed developmental education and then enrolled in those college-level credit-bearing courses and went on to get a diploma or certificate of some sort. These initiatives also implemented some supporting policies such as entrance exams and crosswalks and things like that. So we were kind of ahead of the curve at Davidson, and we'd already started using a lot of these things. At the state level, the developmental math curriculum was redesigned in 2011, and it was fully implemented in 2012 and 13. And then the developmental reading English curriculum was redesigned in 2012 with a full implementation in 2014. This task force for the Reading and English Task Force was made up of 18 faculty members from across the state, from different community colleges, different sizes. So it was really written by people who were actually in the classroom and on the front lines. The faculty task force met starting in January of 2012 and went on till June 2012. And this task force, so to speak, recommended replacing the current developmental English and reading sequence, those the English 080s and the reading 080s, with 3 mini-semester courses that were 8 weeks long and 3 credit hours, and they were to be integrated. And the interesting thing is that the basic outline for the courses followed very closely what we had developed and successfully implemented at Davidson County Community College. And I was part of the redesign team, and as a part of the redesign team, they looked closely at what we had been doing because we were already using those diagnostics and those multiple measures. So it gave kind of a good outline of a program that they knew was already working. And they just tailored it so that it would fit any community college, large or small. The developmental redesign of reading in English in North Carolina created 3 courses, DRE 096, DRE 097, and DRE 098. And those 3 levels, again, are 8 weeks each. So this is, if a student placed in DRE 096, they could be finished with their developmental English easily in a semester and a half. And we developed some 8 weeks English 111s and things like that to go along with it to support this course sequence. DRE 096 was basically writing and reading paragraphs. DRE 097 was reading and writing essays, and 098 was reading and writing the documented essay. And what we mean by documented essay was in-text citations and citing sources and creating a works cited page to support their writings. And now that the state had redesigned the courses and shortened them to 8 weeks, we knew that more than ever, because of the initiatives of Success North Carolina and Achieving the Dream and Completion by Design, we knew more than ever that there was just a much greater need to be able to digitally assess students' progress. We just didn't have the time anymore that the 16-week course sequence had given to us. We couldn't grade essays by the dozens and get them back in a timely manner in 8 weeks. So what we ended up doing was searching around for some sort of piece of technology that lent us that ability to get some feedback on the students and know exactly where they were and where they needed to work. Because we were covering the curriculum so quickly, we were really concerned about student engagement and student retention, and we needed to be sure that all the relevant material was covered sufficiently before the course was finished. Because we had quickly at Davidson combined reading and English, we kind of worked ahead of the curve a little bit. The publishers weren't really prepared for the change. They had lots of good reading books and lots of great writing books for developmental education, but they didn't have very many offerings for that combined process. And so we looked at some of their books and things, but we didn't focus on that as much. We could piece together some things from different texts. We really wanted to look at, again, a piece of technology that would help our students. And what we finally found was Aplia. It kind of rose above the rest because it really brought in this critical thinking piece. Yes, it was showing, helping students to become better readers and writers, but at the same time it was also making them think. It's built very much on Bloom's taxonomy, where a question set will start at very basic levels and move the students up through complexity until they're really thinking about their answers. It's not the traditional ABCD where they learn in elementary school to use the process of elimination and things like that. They have to think through their answers. And what we learned is that so many students struggle with critical thinking and composition skills, things that they probably, with these older students, learned during high school, but they might need a little bit of a refresher. They didn't really need to hear it from me. They needed to just practice it. So Aplia gave us, for that older population, gave us that freedom. Our main goal was to make students really confident and comfortable with technology. We wanted them to be better readers and writers, but we wanted to take these predominantly non-traditional students and use technology to help them learn and realize that they could use it as a tool, because they were going out into the workforce and there were very few professions for which they were preparing that didn't use computers. Many times students would be visibly sweating that first day or two in the computer lab, but by the end of our time together, they may have developed that newfound confidence in themselves and in computers themselves. And it was always really heartwarming to see them blossom and grow and realize that they could use that computer as a tool to learn more and change their lives. The reason Aplia became that hub for us was mainly this diagnostic. At the beginning of the semester, or the beginning of the 8-week course, the students would all take what Aplia calls a diagnostic, and then they were given back this performance report. We had access to the performance report. And this allowed us to easily really look and find out where students' strengths and weaknesses were. And what we use this as a tool that during the second week of course is to meet individually with the students and talk about the areas in which they needed to improve. The nice thing about these diagnostics is that they were hyperlinked, and any of these blue areas were always, you were able to click in and see what the students answered on individual questions. So we were able to go back and really talk through things if we had the time and to work with the students individually. It was just interesting to see the students. They would then take this diagnostic again at the end of the semester, and it was always interesting to meet with them afterwards and talk through their improvements and see their faces just glow because they always improved. And if they made it to the end of the 8 weeks, they always showed improvement. So it was always fun to see that. And I had one older lady tell me that she, at the beginning of the semester, was afraid to turn on the computer, but by the end of it, she was showing her grandkids how to, attach a document or do different things just because she felt more and more comfortable with it. And she said she was also starting to help them with their homework, which had never happened before. So that was always, just those stories were always fun. What we saw was about a 25% increase in completion rates. Now, we weren't comparing apples to apples anymore because we'd gone from 16-week courses to 8-week courses, and they were combined, and there were standard SLOs and those types of things. But we, as instructors, were seeing that before about 50% of our students would be there at the end of the course, we were now starting to see 70 to 75% of our students, sometimes 80% of our students in the higher levels staying and sticking and completing and moving through. And so we utilize those diagnostic assessments at the beginning and the end of the semester now instead of the hand-scored ones. We still use the portfolios. They were just pared down a bit. And we also took grades, and they received a grade for their Aplia homework. And all of those things kind of came in a package to help us decide whether a student completed or not. And using those multiple measures was pretty successful, and students felt like they had a little bit more control over the outcome than they did before when they were just waiting on a grade. One thing that Aplia lets them do is let the instructor set 3 attempts on each problem set, and then the instructor gets the highest score. So students always felt like they were working harder and harder to do better and better. So their scores were usually in their hands. And I'll go in live and show you Aplia, but when you go in, you can go to www.aplia.com and then click on Developmental English, and you don't even have to have an account. Let's go there now. you can just access all of some little samples of some of the developmental English offerings that we have, and there's some videos and things like that that will show you. The ISP is Individualized Student Plan, and that's where they would take that diagnostic and then only get the assignments that go with how they did on their diagnostic. I'm going to go into the integrated reading and writing. I'll go to level 2. So you can see this. And let's go, this would be on the lower blooms. Let's go into a little bit higher up on the hierarchy. And you can see that it addresses the writing process here, and it's talking about revisions and editing and publishing. They have an essay to read, a model essay. So there's some reading practice. And then they have to dissect the essay and talk about whether or not the essay, they're analyzing and evaluating the essay so they've moved up those Bloom's levels to get, to show if they understand how an essay works. Oh, I got both of those right randomly. Let me go on to another page so you can see what would happen. There's grammar review. And I'm going to show you if I get something wrong. There's no way. And there's some feedback. So it gives feedback if they get it wrong. It doesn't give them the answer, but it kind of reviews what they need to do. So they can get immediate feedback on their sources, on their learning. I left Davidson County Community College to work for Cengage almost 2 years ago now, and would never regret my teaching time. It just have taken what I know and understand about instructors and helping Cengage to reach out and better our offerings and our trainings and things like that. So I'm going to turn it over back to Caitlin now.
Great, thanks, Dawn. And so we'll now open up to the audience for question and discussion. We already received some questions from the audience. One in particular is, what technologies does Aplia work with? Could it work with our learning management system, our LMS?
Yes, it will work. You can integrate it into your LMS. Certain LMSs also have grade return, Blackboard, and Desire to Learn, and Canvas. All have automatic grade return where the grades of the students get an Aplia flow into your gradebook, so you don't even have to enter those. Others, such as Moodle and Sakai, you can still upload the grades, but it's fully integrated. You can even, what we call deep link into a specific chapter, so students don't have to navigate to the course outline in Aplia. They can go specifically to a set of questions that you have for them for that week or that day.
Great. And another question that came in was, how do you teach subjects such as documentation, such as short span of time? Really, what was the reaction from the faculty in having to go from 5 courses to an 8-week course, for example?
Yeah, it was hard, very hard. Just really, again, we'd taken those 8 courses at Davidson and moved them down to 3 16-week courses, and then we were told they had to go to 3 8-week courses. And there was panic at first. Even though I was on the redesign team, I still the whole time sat there thinking, how am I going to do this? But we really, really streamlined it, and the use of those portfolios really helped. And the citing of sources, we would take an essay the students had written and teach them how to write it in third person, which is a great lesson. And then we would take that same 5-paragraph essay and have them go out and find 2 sources that would support something that they said in the essay. So we were taking the writings they already had and improving them through time, more so than giving them tons of different writings. We also used an online writing assessment tool that went along with Aplia, but that was just to give them more writing practice, more so than actually teaching documenting the sources. Aplia also helped a lot with that because it gave them activities online where they practiced citing of sources on their own as well.
Great, and a follow-up question to that. Would you describe Aplia as having a higher demand on students and their workload, or does Aplia help the students really take them through and it doesn't feel like it's such a daunting homework assignment or to do?
I think the way that it's chunked, often they'll only have 12 questions to answer, or they might have 50 questions to answer, but the way it's broken up into different learning objectives, the students can kind of move through at their own pace. And I've also, I've just often found if I break it up for students that into smaller pieces, they'll do more work without knowing it. So the way it's chunked up, it feels very bite-sized and manageable for the students.
Great, thank you. And we have one more question. What resources are really needed to adopt the technology? What was the capacity like on your team to adopt it? How much time would you say it took to really implement it throughout the English department?
Okay, that was probably one of the easiest transitions that I'd ever been through, honestly, and I've been through with lots of different publishers. They truly had 3 people working on my account. I had the sales rep, but then I had someone like me, an implementation and training specialist, who really sat down and took the time to make sure that I knew the program well enough at least to get started, and that my students had the materials they needed to get started, and they just really reassured me that I could do this. And then I had another person that they call a digital solutions coordinator that set up my courses and set my due dates, and I didn't even have to do that. I just gave her a syllabus and she set all that up for me. So it was just this, it was one of the easiest and smoothest transitions that I've ever been through as I was an instructor.
Well, thank you. And just a quick note that we do have Dawn's contact information. We'll be sharing her email with you along with the slides and the recording of today's webinar. And our next Achieving a Dream Technology Solutions webinar will be on Wednesday, November 18th. We'll begin broadcasting at 12:30 Eastern Time. And it will be titled When Legislation Changes the Game, the new playbook for responding to remedial need. And it will feature Achieving a Dream Network College, St. Petersburg College based out of Florida, and Pearson Education. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us today, and we look forward to having you continue to join us and learn about all the technology solutions that Achieving a Dream Network colleges are implementing on their campuses. Thank you so much.